Hello, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion, where we're going to be talking about the latest seasons of Daredevil, Better Call Saul, and House of Cards. So first thing, I have to give a spoiler warning for all these shows as we talk about them. If you haven't seen these shows up to the point when we start talking about them, you may want to tune out. Otherwise, because we're going to go full on into spoilers and not hold anything back. So here to talk to me about these three shows is Don Willi. If you want to introduce yourself, Don.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Don Willi, and I'm so glad to be back on Mark's channel and be discussing these very fantastic shows today.
And we also brought in special guests just for our Daredevil segment of the video, and that's Josh and Anna from Geeksiders.
Hey guys, I'm Josh.
And I'm Anna.
We're Geeksiders, and like Mark said, we're just here for the Daredevil portions because we haven't totally caught up on the other two shows, and we don't want to be spoiled.
Oh yeah, Josh, if you just want to scooch a bit to your side to get better sound, that'd be good. Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. So let's just jump into it and just get into Daredevil season 2, which first thing I want to ask you guys is because I kind of, how do you feel about this Netflix format of releasing the entire season at once? Because in some ways it's instant gratification. It's good. You get everything at once. You don't have to wait. But I don't know, particularly as a YouTube reviewer, I find it diminishes the community aspect to it because you're not waiting week to week to get like each episode and let it sink in and talk about it. So I personally would prefer if a show like Daredevil, because I think it does work for some shows, but for Daredevil I'm not sure it quite works. What are your guys' take on that?
I agree for sure. I think weekly episodic television is way easier as a YouTuber to review than something you can watch, all 15 episodes in a day. Because part of the appeal of watching a review video is speculating about what's going to happen next week. And you really don't get to do that with the Netflix format.
So is that why you guys tend to not cover those Netflix shows?
Yeah, that is the sole reason why we don't do it.
All right. What about you, Don? What do you think about this?
Yeah, you know what? I will agree with that. But, I mean, the fun of it, it's a double-edged sword. So the fun of it is that you don't have to wait if you don't want to. But then the other part of it is, because you don't have to wait, there kind of is no anticipation for what comes next. Because, all you got to do is just wait the 10 seconds after the episode is done, and it'll show you exactly what's next. And then the other downside to it, unfortunately, is once it's over, it's done. And you got to wait until whenever the next season is. And so, while I do like the fact that you can watch it all at once if you like, that sort of thing, the downside to it is, once it's over, you're waiting as long as it takes for the next season to come out, and also, there isn't that anticipation. Like when Game of Thrones comes out, hey, listen, that is 10 weeks worth of, speculations on, okay, so this happened in episode 1, what's going to happen for the next 9 weeks? And then after those 9 weeks, yeah, it's wait, there's anticipation behind it, but not as much as, like if you did, like what I did, I watched all of Daredevil in like 2 days. And now I'm sitting there like, okay, so now what the hell do I do?
Yeah, see, I tried to sort of stretch it out, Daredevil. I watched it over like 3 weeks, and I even did my reviews in batches, and I would do my reviews before I watched the next set of episodes. I'd watch episodes 1 through 5, and before I watch the next episode, I review it. So I would be going into it like speculating on what's going to happen next. But that's all well and good. But most of my audience, of course, is already seen ahead of me, so it diminishes the factor. And the other thing is that it's not like show like Game of Thrones or Walking Dead or something where it's on for, you got the hype around it, goes for several months while the show is airing. But it seems like a lot of people just a month after Daredevil's been released, they've already forgotten about it and moved on. So yeah, I don't know if you had any thoughts about that.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, Daredevil. It's been over now for not that long, just a couple of weeks, right?
I think it's been about a month. I think.
Has it been about a month, 3 or 4 weeks? So like this live discussion, I mean, this is probably as late as you could possibly do it.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Cool.
I mean, you know what? I think the bad part about it might be the fact that there were only 10 episodes. Like maybe had it been a longer season, like if it's something like 23 episodes, mentally it would be too daunting of a task to try to get through. When it's like 10 to 13 episodes, it's like, oh, okay, that's a weekend. When it's like, full 23 episode season, I think mentally it's more like, there's no way I'm just going to sit around watching this for the next 2 or 3 days. All right, let me break it up, and I'll watch it as I go along. And I think that Netflix could benefit from adding more episodes, but obviously, they would still have to keep the same level of writing, and that might be the tricky part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they could even keep the same amount of episodes but do it weekly, because Hulu is also an internet service and they do their shows weekly, so you don't really have to release it all at once. But it seems like they like this format, so they're probably going to stick to it. But anyway, let's move on and get on to what your feelings of season 2 overall, how you felt about it. Because I don't know if you guys have seen my review, but I liked season 2, but not quite as much as season 1, because I loved the first half. Like, I was completely blown away by the Punisher first 4 episodes set. But after that, it kind of felt a bit disjointed, like the plot line was all over the place, and they didn't seem to fit together pretty well. But those are just my thoughts on that. We'll start with you, Josh and Anna. What were your thoughts on season 2 as a whole?
Yeah, we had actually talked about that. Like, it seemed like the Punisher story didn't fit in with Daredevil and Elektra as well as it could have. Like, it would have been nicer if the storylines all got together.
I was really what I wanted for the finale. I wanted it to be more of a team-up episode. And I think if the Punisher story had intersected with Daredevil's, like maybe the Hand had something to do with Frank Castle's family's death. Maybe not behind it, just something to do with it. Something to get Punisher invested in helping Daredevil. That's really where I was hoping for it to go. And the fact that I didn't get that, yeah, I was definitely disappointed.
All right, what did you feel about it, Don?
You know what? I actually like season 2 a lot, but I will say that season 1 was better because it had a more cohesive story. I think the fact that Wilson Fisk was the focal point as far as an enemy helped to pull the story together a lot better, and just the fact that there wasn't one central enemy for this particular arc might have been, a big hamper on it. But I mean, I think the people that they got to play those characters did an excellent job with them, and I think this was their Iron Man 2, but done better.
All right.
Yeah, like, people talk about how Iron Man 2 brought in too many characters and it got overloaded, and that kind of brought it down. But Like, I think Daredevil was able to do it, you know, at least in enough of a way that it wasn't overflowing with characters to the point where it's like, all right, well, now I just don't even want to see you guys. Like, you know what? Damn it, I want a Punisher series. I can't wait to see what happens with Elektra. Like, is she going to get her own series? Is she going to be back in season 3 of Daredevil as a villain? You know, yeah, I mean, I want more, but I know that this one still could have been just a little better had they had more of a focus. You know, maybe either not bringing the Punisher or not bringing Elektra, but as bad as it, like, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a hell of a lot worse, but I still think they did I think they did an above par job, even with the mistakes that they did make.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Would you agree with that as well, Josh?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if my only complaint is the finale isn't exactly the way I wanted it to be, I think that's a pretty darn good season.
Yeah, I just want to real quick point out with what Big ZZ says in the chat. He's saying, "Yo, it would be dope as if Andrew Lincoln could come in as the Punisher's sidekick."
And then died in the episode before the finale.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Oh, wait, the Punisher doesn't have a wife, so Andrew, that character wouldn't be able to sleep with it. But then, yeah. But yeah. So, but let's talk about, like, because. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, I would really love to see a Punisher series as well. I think John Bernthal's Punisher is the best Punisher live action we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Oh, by far, by far. In fact, like, because I said
I really liked Warzone, actually, but I like this Punisher better.
Oh, really? Me personally, I didn't really care for Warzone, but
I said it was a crap movie. I like that version of Punisher, though.
Oh yeah, okay. Well,
yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, the movie itself was trash, and honestly speaking, as a New Yorker, I felt insulted by that movie. Like, I like the Punisher, but him walking down 8th Avenue, 14th Street, like, strapped with as many guns as possible, and absolutely no cops called. I'm like, bullshit. Not in my town.
Yeah, I said it in my review that me personally, like, I felt that they finally got the Punisher right, because just the way that they did his backstory and his internal monologuing and just his whole demeanor, it seemed like just out of, because I was a huge fan. Like, this was one of the comic books I actually really liked as a kid. It was like my second favorite comic book behind the X-Men, so I was just waiting for them to get it. So I was sort of really picky about them getting the Punisher right, and I think they finally got it right. And I do think that he does deserve his own show. In fact, I heard a while back, even before Daredevil Season 2 was released, that they are thinking about giving, like, they weren't thinking about giving him his own show before, but after they filmed it and saw how well the character worked, that they're now thinking about giving him his own show. Hopefully. So yeah, that's pretty much the feelings across the board about the Punisher. So I think they definitely succeeded there. So let's talk about Elektra, because that's where people are a bit more sort of divisive about. Because well, let's start with you, Josh. What did you think of Elektra?
She was better than Jennifer Garner. That's the bar you got to beat, and it's an easy bar to beat, and they did. And that's really all they had to do with that character.
But do you think that she worked, like, because I know Don mentioned earlier it'd be cool to see her have her own show. Do you also think it'd be cool to have her own show, or are you not quite sure about that character or how well she worked?
I'm not sure about that yet. I think she would need another really kind of solidify herself to getting her own show.
Yeah.
But then, you know, they're doing an Iron Fist show, and he's a very, like, you know, B-level superhero. So, I mean, if anybody could do it, it's definitely Netflix.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I think Elektra might work better as just an amendment to Daredevil, but I definitely want to see her again. And I did really like her character a lot, and because some people complained about her storyline, but I thought it worked like a lot better than I thought it would. Like, I thought it was going to come off as cheesy. Maybe because my only experience with Elektra previously was the Ben Affleck movie, but yeah, I actually was surprised with how well it worked. But yeah, but some people weren't happy with the overall storyline. But you guys were both happy with their storyline?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Were you?
Yeah, I think it's because her storyline and Punisher's storyline were almost completely separate, so it almost felt like two different two different seasons. And so maybe that was it. Is you had Punisher first to keep Lewis away, so I mean, she kind of wasn't as good as he was.
Yeah, I think to me it reminded me of movies like Batman and Robin, or like Spider-Man 3. Maybe not that cheesy, but in the fact that they have too many villains, too many characters. Yeah. Too many things going on where they should have just been a bit more focused. Like Season 1 had a lot of side plots and a lot of different things, but they all seem to sort of work together to serve the whole, whereas I felt the Hand storyline and the Punisher storyline were just too they just didn't blend well together. So yeah, what did you guys think of the Hand? Because my issue with their storyline wasn't so much Elektra. I thought she worked very well, but the Hand came off as a bit too comic booky to me. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Well, if I may, about the Hand, you know, as someone who actually took ninjutsu for a little while, I know that seems like something like what the hell do you mean you took ninjutsu? Yeah, it was cool to see real ninjas on screen, but it being placed in a modern setting did seem a little weird, and especially because Daredevil has come off so grounded. So to see like ninjas running around the streets with swords, you know, it's like, oh wow, yeah, it does take you out of it for just a minute there. And it does seem a little comic booky because they are kind of on the nose with them running up with the katanas and all that. So like, yeah, I will concede that point. And also I think one thing that they didn't do with the Hand is maybe explain enough of how the organization works. Like I don't think we got enough backstory on the actual Hand itself, and I know that they're trying to build it up as like a shadow organization, and I guess this is going to be Daredevil's kind of version of Hydra. But with Hydra, you know, even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we get some sort of backstory to it, so it's not just this entity that's there and it's like, all right, we show up with a bunch of minions. Like, you know, we don't have enough of the other players who are a part of the Hand to kind of pull it all together so you know like what their actual goal is.
Yeah, I mean, they did try to give us a little bit of backstory with Stick telling us about the ancient history, but still, I definitely feel like they held back a bit too much. It seems that's one of the issues I had with that storyline, is because they never explained like the giant hole in the ground and what to deal with those zombie kids were and stuff like that, and it felt like they were holding back too much for later seasons, whereas I needed a little bit more explanation. And for me, it wasn't so much that they were ninjas that I found a bit too silly. It's more of the fact of the weird supernatural stuff, like the fact Elektra's Black Sky and the zombie kids and stuff like that. That seemed a bit hokey to me. I don't know. What were your feelings on this, Josh and Anna?
Of course, Daredevil. All this takes place in the.
Oh, Josh, sorry, if you just want to move a bit over so we can hear you better.
Daredevil, Jessica Jones, all that takes place in the MCU, and we're getting Doctor Strange here soon. So thinking of it in the context of all the other stuff going on, I'm totally fine with the supernatural and the unexplained. I think it works, perfectly well as part of the whole, the whole MCU.
Oh yeah, I mean, I suppose that's one way to look at it, because I haven't really looked at it that way, because the shows like the Jessica Jones and Daredevil so far have had like a different tone than the movies, so it's sometimes easy to forget that they're part of the same universe. Yeah, so
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, you guys are completely okay with the supernatural element? You thought it worked well for the...
I totally am.
Yeah, cool.
I have no problem with the supernatural element. The question I have, I could be wrong about this, but wasn't that big giant hole also in Jessica Jones as well? Was that there, or am I
I don't remember it in being in Jessica Jones, the giant hole.
No, I don't think it was. No.
Okay, I'll have to go back and watch, but I thought that was part of the thing that she was either the Purple Man had her looking for something in a giant hole, or I don't know, something revolving around her killing Luke Cage's wife. But again, I could be wrong. I could be misremembering things. So I mean, don't hold me to that, please. No.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a few intersections between Jessica Jones and Daredevil, and I'm really looking forward to them opening up this television universe, because quite frankly, I'm more interested in these I don't know what they're calling it, but the Netflix Marvel universe than the cinematic one, because to me, again, because I like the sense of realism, and then it's not quite as hokey as the comic books. Yeah. So what do you guys are looking forward to most going forward? Not just in Daredevil, but any of these other sort of Marvel shows coming forward.
Looking forward to. I'm looking.
Oh,
I think I'm probably most excited for Luke Cage, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
All right. I mean, you know what? I'm actually most excited for Iron Fist for two reasons. One, I want to see what kind of accent they're going to have Finn Jones use. And two, powers. We're going to get to see some special effects, because you can't do Iron Fist and just have him, punch stuff and not have a glowing hand. So finally, we'll get to see some special effects on one of these Marvel Netflix shows. At least that's what I hope. And plus, martial arts. I mean, Daredevil has great martial arts. Somehow, I doubt Luke Cage is going to have the same amount of martial arts. It seems like they're just going to do a lot of guns and how can we kill Luke Cage since we can't shoot him kind of thing. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to Luke Cage, because I think they're going to do him justice. They did a great job with him in the Jessica Jones series, and that's cool and all, but I want to see Iron Fist, and who knows, hopefully even after the Defenders, maybe we'll get a Heroes for Hire series.
All right. So why? Just want to follow up with you, Jess. So what about Luke Cage is it that has you most excited about?
It's just I like the idea of the unkillable powerhouse, and just like Don said, what kind of threat are they going to build for him? It has me curious and just wondering, just how exactly they're going to take how exactly they're going to approach it.
So is that the show you're looking forward to? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
And it's coming out sooner than anything else, so it's the one we're getting. Like, they're almost done filming it, so it's like right around the corner.
Oh, so is that the next one? I thought it was Iron Fist.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay, so it's Luke Cage. I don't know. Like me personally, I was a bit like because we've already saw so much of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. I was more looking forward to someone we haven't seen as much yet. But I think it would be cool. We'll probably be introduced to more characters in that show as well.
I'm curious about Iron Fist. I've never been a big Iron Fist fan, so I'm curious to see if they can make me like that character.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't heard of any of these characters other than Daredevil and Punisher. Like, Jessica Cage, all of them is sort of over my head, so it's all sort of new to me.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, for comic book geeks, use guys. I
just got into comic books like 3 years ago, so I have a lot of catching up to do.
You know what?
She reads mostly indies.
Yeah.
I have a special app that perfectly describes my thoughts of what you guys have just said. Shame. But you know what? I will let you get a pass for right now. In the battery that freely expressed something I'm in. Yeah. So what about those guys?
So I just want to mention real quick what Big ZZ says in the chat. He says, yes, a Marvel TV show about a black brother. Finally, at least he won't die first.
Yes.
But as Luke Cage, like, yeah, he's not going to die. He's got impervious skin. That's the good thing about Luke Cage.
I really hope we get the backstory where he's wearing the gold jacket.
Where he's wearing what jacket?
The gold jacket, the yellow jacket. He's got the purple headband.
Oh, good Lord, no, no, not Disco Luke Cage. Please, not Disco Luke Cage.
I'm just messing with you, Don.
So do you have any sort of final thoughts on Daredevil Season 2 or any Daredevil Season 3 coming up or anything like that before we move on?
The one thing is one of the themes throughout Season 2 was people like getting their fingers chopped off, you know, and the villain right now in the Daredevil comics is 10 fingers. He has 10 fingers on each hand.
Oh.
So I'm like, all right, I wonder if they're teasing something for a future season. Are we getting 10 fingers?
And we kind of, the show is really, really good. It kind of sets the bar. Things that they could have done better, but I do want to point out something they did absolutely flawlessly, and that is the fight scene down the stairwell.
Oh,
that was amazing.
Oh yes. Do you guys both agree that it was even better than the hallway fight scene from Season 1?
Yeah.
Their choreography is totally on point. It's second to none at all.
Yeah. I mean, and that was in like episode 3. So it's like for me, if you take the first 4 episodes and just block it off and make its own season, that would be like, I would give it a 10 out of 10. It would be like the best. But yeah, so hopefully they'll try to consolidate things a bit more next season. All right. Did you have any thoughts, Don, before we move on?
Yeah, you know, again, I like the season. I guess maybe a little bit better than you guys did. But the fight in the hallway, I didn't think that they could top the one from Season 1. And they managed to do it, and it still had the same feel of, like, that whole continuous just in and out of rooms and hallways and down corridors, and the fact that they were able to pull it off in such not a grandiose manner, but something that felt bigger than the actual space it was in. That's the thing that I loved about it, because it could have come off like how some of the fights on Arrow do, which, like, if you've ever watched any of the fights on Arrow, it seems as small as it actually is. Like Arrow comes off totally as a TV show, where Daredevil, you could transfer some of this stuff to movies and give them a run for their money. So, yeah, I definitely take my hats off to the fight choreographers, the cinematographers, because it is shot so beautifully, and I can't wait to see how they up the bar for season 3, and I hope they bring in Bullseye, because we need Bullseye.
I'm a bit nervous about Bullseye after seeing him in the movie, but of course they did Elektra so much better, so maybe they could do Bullseye better too.
Come on, man! Like we already know they're not going to pull the Colin Farrell. Hey, man! All that other stuff. Nah, they're not going to do that.
All right, cool. So I think we're done with Daredevil. So Josh and Anna, thank you guys so much for joining us for this portion of the chat. It was really great to sort of get your input on this topic. If you guys want to give a quick shout out to your channel before you take off.
Hey, I'm Josh.
And I'm Anna.
We're Geeksiders. Come check out our channel. We do all kinds of different reviews. Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, Winona Earp right now going on Sci-Fi Channel. If you're not watching it, you really should. It's awesome.
All right, guys, cool. Thanks a lot for joining. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us very much.
Yeah, it's always great. So, yeah, until next time, we'll definitely do this again sometime. Cool. All right, so...
You know what? They actually forgot to mention that I'm going to be on their channel tomorrow doing an overview of Supergirl.
Oh, right. You guys doing that tomorrow. So is that season finished already? Okay.
Yeah, Supergirl finished last night, in fact.
All right. Oh, yeah. Maybe I'll tune in and check that out, even though I haven't seen that show, but it's all right. Okay, cool. So let's move on to Better Call Saul. This is something I'm really eager to talk about, just fresh off the finale yesterday. Now, I've done a series of review videos on this, but I actually have no idea what your takes on season 2 of Better Call Saul is. I haven't heard that yet, so if I would just want to get your opinion on it first.
Well, you know what? Like Breaking Bad, season 2 of Better Call Saul ups the ante. They delve more into the characters' personalities. They give us, they fill in more of the backstory, because even though we know at least Mike and obviously Saul from Breaking Bad, there's a lot of the nuanced dynamics that we didn't get with those characters because they were the background guys. But now that they've been pulled to the forefront, it's great to see more of their personality, who they are, and we get to get some insight as to how they became the Ruthless, because those two guys especially were very ruthless by the time you meet them in Breaking Bad. They no nonsense, and it was like they were on 10 at all times. Here, it's kind of like Jimmy started off season 1 at about a 5. Now he's maybe at about a 6.5. Mike started off season 1. I would say Mike started out season 1 at about a 7, and now he's at about an 8.5, and he 8.5 pushing like to 10. But after what happened in the finale, he might be trying to reel it back in just a little bit. But I love this season though. I loved it.
Oh right. Did you like it like even better than season 1? Or is that too hard to say at this stage?
That might be too hard to say because like season one was almost a shocker. Because since we didn't know where they were starting with Jimmy, and just how far down the totem pole he actually was and how different he was, it was good to see just like he's almost unrecognizable in season 1, except for every now and then you get glimpses of what he will become. And then, this one was like last season, they kind of gave you a peek through the blinds. This season, they kind of cracked open the door a little bit and leave the door cracked open. And next season, it's going to be like he's going to walk through the door and get the man, maybe not to the level he was at by the time he meets Walter White, but the beginnings of him just saying, you know what? Like, if you remember at the end of season 1, he was like, oh, I know what held me back, and it's not going to hold me back anymore. But then something new held him back. And it's like, what kind of man does he become when there's nothing holding him back? Yeah. So we have to get to the nothing holding him back.
Now, I remember after season 1 finished, I thought the season 1 moved at kind of a slow pace, and I thought, well, I predict or hope that season 2 would move at a faster pace, but arguably season 2 was even slower paced than season 1. But that's not to say like I didn't like it. I still loved it. Like regardless of the fact it was slow paced, I actually did prefer season 2 over season 1 slightly. Like they're both like up there, but to me, season 2 just ever so slightly raised the bar. But I think a lot of people, I heard a lot of friends of mine and people I know like don't really watch the show anymore, and they were sort of off put by the slow pace of it. And I know like the ratings aren't like dangerously low, but apparently they're not like the best as they could be. And so, did you find the pace of season 2 slower, and could you see how that might be off-putting to some people?
I mean, I think people got so used to Breaking Bad and the action from Breaking Bad that they miss some of the character-driven parts of the story. So it's just like, oh, they're not doing anything. Like, no, you got to understand, they're doing a lot right now. It's just that this is how they're doing it. It's not a thing of, okay, well, we have to go and shoot this person and the meth lab just blew up and getting chased by the cops. It's like, no, like right now is almost the same progression that Walter White had, but Jimmy's starting off at a different place because he was the guy who was technically the bad guy who was like, all right, I'm trying to turn my life around, and is finding out slowly that turning your life around and being this good guy because you idolize your brother, not only is it not going to work because that's not what you really want to do, but ultimately, it's kind of like he's being pushed to be a criminal to a certain extent because of the circumstances that he's in. It's like, well, you know what? Like with the whole deal with Davison Maine, right? With the commercial. They're freaking out about, oh, you made this kind of commercial, and I can't believe. But then, if you notice, not after he left, but right before he left, they went and did the same commercial, but redubbed it in a new voice and just put it on late at night. But it's like, yeah, no one's gonna see that. He's like, look, you know what? I brought you in business, and you're saying that somehow this hurts your rep. But I'm like, no, it doesn't hurt your rep if it's getting you what you want. You want people from this old folks retirement home to call you and tell you their story, so then this way we can get this class action lawsuit going. And you're sitting here bitching and complaining about, well, you didn't do it to everyone because it's standard things and people might look at it wrong. You know, so they're almost pushing him to be Slipping Jimmy.
Well, yeah, I think it's mainly like the whole season 2. I think it was mainly just about Jimmy finding out that he's not a fit for these like stuck up for law firms, and he needs something a bit more sleazy, like the commercials and stuff, and to do his own thing. But what I found interesting is that, so basically that's what season 2 was pushing for, is that it resulted in Jimmy running his own firm, sort of, and doing these sleazy commercials, but he's still not quite at the Saul level yet, because he's still doing the straight and narrow, whereas we know Saul in Breaking Bad is a really criminal. He's a criminal lawyer. He's involved with the criminals. He knows, he like pretty much has every connection in the world. So we didn't see any of this building toward this at all in season 2. So I think they still have a long way to go to establish what kind of character he will end up in Breaking Bad eventually, because we still need to see him sort of gain his connections. And I'm hoping that this will happen through the Mike storyline, that the Mike storyline will again intersect with Jimmy's and sort of bring in the whole criminal element to it.
I mean, I would imagine that it would have to, only because, you know, like when we first meet him in Breaking Bad, you know, he works for, like, Mike is his private investigator, but he kind of also works with the cartel, and he's the one that hooks up Walter White with Gus Fring. So at some point, yeah, they're gonna have to, you know, cross paths and work together. Now, we already know that Mike doesn't particularly like Jimmy, but he will use him when it's convenient. So, yeah, I think especially after the scare that Mike got at the end of the last episode, I think it's going to be like, all right, you know what, I need to get my ducks in a row, and, you know, we'll get more of the no half measures Mike, but also we'll get more of the, you know, full on Saul character. Even though it seems like we're not going to get Saul Goodman until like season 4, if we get season 4.
Well, yeah, that's another conversation altogether. I hope that they go at least 5 seasons. Some people thinking, it could end at 3, 4, but I'm still, because when this show first like came out, like the producers and actors, everyone involved said it's not a prequel. They're saying it's not going to entirely take place before Breaking Bad times. It's going to move past Breaking Bad times, but at this rate that they're going, it does seem like it's a prequel. These first 2 seasons are definitely a prequel. So I don't know, they might have changed their mind and decided to do the whole thing a prequel, but maybe it depends on how long this show runs for.
I mean, but it's just but it's the Saul Goodman story though. So yes. I mean, you know, Breaking Bad, like if we were going to call it a Breaking Bad prequel, it would have to more so revolve around, like, he would have to interact with Walter White at a time where we know he doesn't interact with Walter White. Like, he'd have to be doing stuff with, like, the high school, and you know, like, he shows at the car wash. Like, there's so many things that he would have to do on a regular basis that would have to feed into Walter White's storyline. And before before he gets introduced, he has absolutely no interaction with Walter White, and he has no reason to want to interact with him before he finds out, oh, this guy's meth kingpin, and how can I make some money off of this?
Well, I think it's more of a what they would call a spin-off prequel. So it's a spin-off, but set before the main show. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see what they're growing. I kind of hope that they push up the pace again a little bit more, but I trust them to not make it seem a bit awkward or anything, whatever they do. So, but let's talk a bit about Mike, because we touched on him a little bit, and basically I think we saw the birth of the no half measures Mike in the season, because throughout the entire season he's like, I'm not going to kill. He's like outright refused. Like he did the song and dance to not kill Tuco, and that basically like backfired him in the worst way, because it resulted in Hector sort of coming to him, hassling him, and threatening his family, and all this because if he simply had just killed Tuco, then he wouldn't have had to deal with any of that nonsense. And even after that, he tried a workaround to get at Hector without killing him, and that just resulted. He didn't succeed in getting Hector, and it resulted in an innocent bystander being killed. So if it seems like at the end, when he put on the rifle, he was like, I had enough of this no half measures thing, and he's just going to go straight to kill him.
I mean, well, you know what? I love the fact that they brought back Tuco. I love the fact that we get Hector Salamanca, the twins. I mean, they went full on with the cartel this season. The only one that we were missing was the boss, the one that oh man, I forgot what his name is. The gentleman that was Manolo in Scarface. Yeah, but he was the only one from like the regular cartel that we were missing, and like the fact that they brought all of those characters in, I think symbolizes that they're both going to get swept up in this whole underground world and be and have to become more ruthless than they thought they would ever need to be. And yeah, you know, like when Mike receives that message at the end, and I'm sitting up there like, wow, that was one of the things where I'm sitting up there like, because I'm like, wait, Mike can't die yet, but it still made you kind of nervous to a certain extent. Because
yeah.
Like, you know, you hear the horn there, and it's like, all right, he's looking around, like there's nobody in the cars, but I can definitely hear a horn. And then when you find out it's Mike's, I'm like, okay, wait, no, he didn't leave that branch. This one who did? And then he goes to the windshield and you don't. And he's like, who?
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, Don. Do you have any thoughts on who it might have been that left the note?
Well, it obviously can't be Nacho. You know, even though.
I mean, what I was thinking is that it could have been Nacho could have had some other because we know that he has a gang, so could have had some other guys put the note there for him while he was over there, because it was kind of suspicious how Nacho was blocking Mike's shot the whole time. So it kind of seems like it might have been on purpose.
I mean, yeah, like I can totally see that, because even I thought when he first was standing there, I was like, okay, is he doing this on purpose, or is this just coincidence? And then, you know, the question before the horn was, is Mike gonna shoot through Nacho to get the help? But the thing about it is, Nacho doesn't seem like the greatest strategist. He doesn't seem like the guy. I mean, because think about it, right? Like, I'm not sure if it was Hector or Nacho who sent the two guys to Mike's house that he pistol whipped the shit out of. But again, Yeah, I mean that wasn't a very strategic move. I mean, like this guy is a former detective. He's already made threats on his life. Like you think that he is not going to be on his A game just because like, oh, he's an old guy from Philly, so yeah, he's not used to this. Like, no, he's an old cop from Philly. Like you guys must not know anything about Philadelphia. Um, but I just yeah, I mean, like I saw your video earlier. You brought up Gus Fring. I was like, whoa, mind blown. Because you know what, I could see. I mean, because remember, Gus was trying to bring down the cartel for years, ever since they killed his lover. And you know what? We still haven't seen Los Pollos Hermanos. We know that Gus had something to do with Hector ending up in the chair. Or at least if you look at Breaking Bad, that's kind of how it seems. Like, because he goes to visit him just to taunt him, you know. So it seems like Gus had something to do with that. So maybe you're right. You know, this is how Mike gets on with Gus. This is how he's like, hey, you know what? I like the way that you were going to do this. So come be a part of my team.
Yeah. So had you considered that before you watched my video, or did you just?
No, actually, I hadn't. I thought it might have been the arms dealer.
Oh, right, the arms dealer. I hadn't considered that one.
I thought it might have been the arms dealer at first, and you know, like not knowing who it was that Mike was going to kill. And then when he figured out who it was he was going to kill, he's like, don't. He's just, nope. He didn't want to take the chance of coming back on him. Because remember, like earlier, he wiped down the gun. You know, he was trying to make everything as untraceable as possible. So I figured maybe he followed Mike to figure out who it was he was trying to kill and put that note there and just like, no, not with my weapons. Don't do that.
I mean, I suppose that's still a possibility. I think, I don't know, me personally, I think the arms dealer tends to be someone who just lets people do their own business and tries to stay out of it. But it maybe this was too big and he wanted to sort of help out. So I think that's possible too. And I do kind of think that Gus Fring might be a bit too wishful thinking, because everyone really wants him to return. And what makes me doubt it is that I've seen several interviews with the actor who plays Gus, and he was always kind of iffy about coming to Better Call Saul. Like, I know he said once in an interview that he don't think he would come just for like a cameo. It would have to be like a major role.
Oh, so, I mean, well, you got to think, you know, for the season that was it 1 season or 2 seasons that he was on Breaking Bad?
Two seasons?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it was like 3 and 4, right?
Yeah. 3 and 4.
I mean, like, he was a major part of that. I mean, and I don't see why you would bring him on to Breaking Bad, just, you know, I mean, not Breaking Bad, but bring him on to Better Call Saul just to be the guy that's like, all right, hi, my name is Gus Fring. Him with his whole kind of robot thing. I'm Gus Fring, blah, blah, blah. This is my story. Blah, blah. You know, so, no, I think if you do bring him on, I mean, first off, Giancarlo Esposito is a fantastic actor.
Absolutely.
And he played Gus Fring. Like, I don't think that there's anybody else I would have cast for that role after seeing him. So if you're gonna bring him into Better Call Saul, you know, you definitely have to make him a major player. Now, I mean, like, and the thing about it is, I don't think you can fully do Better Call Saul without bringing in Gus at some point, because, you know, again, his story, like, Saul and Mike's storyline get wrapped up in the whole Los Pollos Hermanos and cartel operations because that is the way that they meet. The way that they meet Walter White, and by the time they meet Walter White, they already have their operation going, and apparently it had been going well for a long time. So
yeah, I mean, I got the impression in Breaking Bad that Saul just kind of knew who Gus was. Like he just wasn't. He wasn't like too in on it, but he knew who he was. Whereas Mike, I think that's where it's most important to bring Gus in if you're going to tell Mike's backstory, because by the time we get to Breaking Bad, Mike is like Gus's right-hand man. So Mike is all up in there. So I don't see how they can tell Mike's backstory without telling Gus. And plus, Gus is he's like the most iconic villain in Breaking Bad. In fact, he's one of the most like well-known iconic villains in all of television. So it seems like that's just from clearly a financial standpoint. That seems like a really rich well for them to go to, and they'd be a bit neglectful not to go to that well.
and also, I would think like if they feel like they're having problems with ratings, if you have a promo of Gus Fring as the lead up for season 3, and you up the action, like if that's if people are like, oh yeah, we're missing all the action from Breaking Bad, fine, then you throw in Gus Fring, you get Jimmy into the underground, because I don't know if anyone has noticed this, so mark this one down for all of you people out there who are watching this, or who have, like, if you watch this later, if you've stuck around for this long. When we get our introduction to Saul Goodman, we actually get a reference to Nacho in season 2 of Breaking Bad when when Walter and Jesse take Saul out to the desert to bury him, and he suggests, oh, why don't you kill Badger? So obviously, Jimmy gets into some serious shit, and it's serious enough that he thinks that the cartels could possibly come after him. And again, we don't know what happened to Nacho. I think either he's on the run or he's dead. So we need to rescue the Nacho storyline at some point as well.
Yeah, it's very possible that he's dead, but I tend to think that maybe he's on the run, or at least Jimmy thinks he's on the run, because Jimmy said, oh, it wasn't me, it was him. I guess you could say that about someone who's dead, but it seems to me like he thinks he's still alive. And the interesting thing is that potentially, and again, this wouldn't be till like a season 4 sort of thing, even if they go that far, potentially like Better Call Saul could move beyond like Breaking Bad times, and we could see like that Saul still knows people from the show, like Nacho or Kim maybe might have been around when Walter White was around. We just didn't see them because they were never together. I mean, that's a possibility. Anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, because Saul was a very, very background character then. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a lot about Mike. So let's talk more about. I want to talk about Chuck, because what was your take on Chuck? And I'm just curious did you agree with sort of my take that he wasn't the innocent victim, that he actually had a lot of sort of jealousy and resentment towards Jimmy, and actually went out of his way to sort of talk down to him?
You know what? I'm going to need to finish my wine before I talk about Chuck. Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
Chuck, you bastard. So, there was a point where I felt sympathy for Chuck. And I think the show kind of goes out of their way to show you, like, look, Chuck isn't isn't a super villain, but Chuck is a bastard. So like when they showed about his mom, about their mom dying, and Chuck doesn't tell Jimmy that her last words were Jimmy. I'm like, oh, you are a fuckface and a half, man. Like it hurts you so bad that people love Jimmy, just because of his personality. That it's just like, you know what? Really, it probably would have hurt Jimmy more if you told him, yeah, the last thing she did was call for you before she died, and you weren't there because you just had to have a fucking sandwich. Like that probably would have hurt him more than, oh no, she didn't say anything, she just died. And him not being there. But like when you see the episode of Rebecca and you get that flashback to him, with his, I guess, ex-wife. I mean, like, we still have no idea what happened with Rebecca, but just the fact that Chuck wants the same, like, wants people to look at him with the same adulation as they look at Jimmy with. When Jimmy comes around, people are like, oh, hey, Jimmy's here. Chuck wants that for himself, and because he couldn't have that, he just went out of his way and say, you know what, I've got to one-up this guy every chance I get. And when he thought that he couldn't one-up him, like that just sent him into a rage. Yeah, and we saw it throughout the season. Every time he felt that he just could not best Jimmy, like.
Yeah, it's mainly he's jealous, and I think the show did a great job of sort of conveying like sort of how jealous it is, because it's easy on the surface level to think of Chuck as the victim because Jimmy's breaking the law. He's doing these sort of cons to set him up and make him really humiliated in court. But Chuck isn't any victims really, and Chuck definitely isn't the victim. He has if he wasn't so petty with Jimmy, like, he actually calls Jimmy to be worse. Like that rant that Kim goes off on Chuck about, like, it wasn't wrong. Like, she wasn't lying. All that stuff she said to him was absolutely the truth. So I just want to just read a couple lines from the chat. Rangdingo Dio says all the characters are so layered in Better Call Saul, and that's absolutely true. I mean, just so you could take like hours just picking the layers of, to how the characters, and this is one of the reasons why this show is so great. And also Arthur says hate Chuck and hate how stupid they made Jimmy look in that last scene. So let's talk about that last scene, because I think that is a valid complaint. What do you think about that, Don? Do you think that they made Jimmy look a bit too stupid in that final scene?
Actually, I don't, because, look, here is a guy who, remember, you got to think about it. At this point, he's still operating off of guilt, right? Because for him, he's thinking, all right, this is the last family member I have, and he knows that he screwed Chuck over, right? He was like, yes, Chuck screwed over Kim, and his major motivation wasn't to humiliate Chuck, but it was to make sure that Kim would be okay. But then on top of that, he's like, okay, but I didn't intend for Chuck to hurt himself, almost die, go into a self-induced catatonic coma, and then still not really be okay, because, so he's fighting, because the thing about it is he doesn't want to really fight with Chuck. He wants to be on the same side with Chuck, but he knows that Chuck hates him, and he doesn't exactly know why. And so for him to be vulnerable and get caught in that particular moment, I don't think that it was him, like that they made him look stupid. I think they just, they did what most humans would do in that situation. His primary concern was, did I go too far with this particular action? Because now my brother is willing to give up the thing that he loves. He's like, all right, so if I have to tell him the truth to get him to not give up what he loves, fine, and so be it. Now, remember, Chuck has never been a con man, right? As far as Jimmy knew, Chuck has never been the guy to con. Even though he held Jimmy back from becoming a lawyer, and he never believed in him. He never thought in his wildest dreams that Chuck would try to out slipping Jimmy.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're exactly right. So I don't think that was bad writing. I think I totally buy it, because even though it seems that way because Jimmy was so good at spotting cons, but it seems like it makes total sense that he'd have a blind spot as far as his brother is concerned, because he never thought that his brother would be capable of. And really, by doing this, he's stooped to Jimmy's level. In order to, like, he's so petty and so full of the need to get revenge on Jimmy, he stooped that low just to do it. Yeah, and it's like Rangingo Dio says in the chat that in that last scene, Jimmy was feeling really guilty, and that's true. And Chuck totally exploited that guilt. Like, Chuck had to be aware that Jimmy actually was sincere in his feelings of wanting to help Chuck, and he exploited those feelings. So arguably, Chuck is just as bad, if not worse, than Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about it is, like, because Chuck has been such the straight arrow for so long, when he says to him, "Oh, you just confessed to committing a felony," I'm like, the way that Chuck delivers things, of course Jimmy wouldn't be aware that he had a tape recorder, because it's Chuck being Chuck. Even when Chuck had the rant about him, slipping Jimmy with a law degree is like a monkey with a machine gun. It's like, that is Chuck being Chuck. Like, for him, since it's all about, you have to do what's right and by the book and the law and this, that, and the third, and he's trying to have the moral high ground all the time. Since he's trying to keep the moral high ground, it's a thing where it's just like, all right, well, Cole will play it this way, because if Chuck deviated from the way that he normally acted, then Jimmy would pick up on it. Jimmy would have said, okay, wait, what did you just say? So Chuck knows Jimmy's game, and that's how he was able to get in, past his defenses. It's like, all right, I'm going to use the sympathy card, because I know he feels bad. So I'll use that to get him to confess. Because every other time that Chuck tried it the way that, the route of accusing Jimmy of doing something wrong or insinuating, it's like, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. Oh, why would you think I would do that? He was like, all right, I have to play it different now. How would Jimmy get a confession? Jimmy would set up something elaborate, but he would act like he knew nothing about nothing at all. Like, oh wait, what are you talking about? You just confessed to committing a felony. And at that point, Jimmy was like, yeah, well, maybe. But, it's my word against yours.
Yeah, and it was quite expertly the way he pulled it off because he acted the whole time. He let Jimmy do, like, he acted like he wanted Jimmy to go away. That's the thing about pulling a con. You have to make the mark, like, think that it's his idea when it's actually your idea. And Chuck actually, so he must have learned a lot from Jimmy to pull it off so well. But yeah, I'm gonna want to move on pretty shortly to our final topic. But before we move on, I want to ask about what do you hope to see in season 3? Like, because what I am thinking is that season 3 is going to be an all-out war between Chuck and Jimmy, and I have a feeling that things are going to like spark like right away. It's not going to be this slow burn like the first 2 seasons were, because I think because of this cliffhanger, and this was another really surprising thing because they haven't done a cliffhanger like this before. So it seems like season 3 is going to hit the ground running and start right away. So, I mean, obviously we know that Jimmy isn't going to get arrested. So what do you think is going to happen with Chuck and his piece of evidence?
Okay, so I do agree with your all-out war thing. I think that, he takes this, he finds some way to possibly... First, I think he goes after Kim because
really,
yes, because he told Kim, this is what Jimmy did, this is who he is, and since he's all against him now, it's like, all right, anyone who sided with Jimmy about anything, if he can bring them down, he will. So I think he's going to go after Kim and her business to the point where Kim is like, look, Jimmy, I can't be with you anymore because you being you cost me everything. Then I think he's going, after he's brought down Kim, possibly got Ernesto fired, and maybe even somebody else's collateral damage, then he's going to go after Jimmy's law degree. And I think the end of it is going to be Jimmy gets this ball, but then as Chuck is celebrating, he has another episode with all the electricity, has some sort of psychotic break, and then Jimmy gets him put in the mental, gets him locked up in the loony bin. And then after that, he goes under an assumed name, goes through the process of getting a law degree again from like University of American Samoa, like fast track everything, and then become Saul Goodman.
That's very interesting. I do agree that I hope at least that Jimmy is going to become Saul by the end of season 3, and I do think it's very likely. And I do think the end game is probably going to end up with Chuck in the mental institution, because I kind of hope that they don't do that, because that's kind of the easy out, because Chuck even thought that Jimmy was going to do that in this episode. He was like, oh, you're just going to lock me away to get rid of him. So Chuck's got to be aware that that is a trump card that Jimmy's holding. So maybe Chuck won't directly go after Jimmy with that piece of evidence. Maybe he'll try to blackmail him and Kim, is what I'm thinking, because he knows that Jimmy's holding that trump card of the mental institution. But I don't know. We'll see. And I was also thinking that maybe that Kim might end up leaving Jimmy because Jimmy starts to get involved in the criminal underworld with the mic and stuff, and that's when she just has to back off, and it's like, that's just a bit too much for me. But I don't know. And I was also thinking that maybe we settle, like Chuck and Jimmy, like their feuds come to a head and they end up settling in court, where part of the settlement is that Jimmy's not allowed to use the name Jimmy McGill. I don't know. That's just one possibility. Yeah.
I mean, it could be, and the thing about it, right? Like Chuck wants to crush Jimmy, in every way imaginable, but I think mostly he wants to crush Jimmy's spirit, right? So I don't think that he succeeds if he blackmails him. If he gets, like, because remember, Jimmy actually worked to become a lawyer, right? He really worked for it. And he's actually been working to try to do better things, even though he hasn't been above board with the way he's gone about it. So I think that for Chuck, him being able to seemingly strip Jimmy of things that he has worked for legitimately in an underhanded way, for Chuck, it's like, all right, well, yeah, cool. If I do this, Jimmy will be too devastated to try to get me thrown in the mental institution. And besides, he can't just he can't just walk up and just, like, all right, get him committed. Like, there has to be something to happen. So we've already seen that Chuck, can go into this self-induced catatonic state. And I'm thinking that there's going to be some episode where Chuck goes into another catatonic state again, but only after he has done, like, the most damage to Jimmy that he could possibly do. So after he's either gotten him disbarred or, totally ruined his relationship with Kim or something. It's like something catastrophic that, he goes on a victory lap, thinks that he is won and he's cured, and then, like, something happens and, oh, microwaves, electricity, and then the next thing you know, he wakes up in a mental institution and is trying to convince them, no, I'm better now. Look, see, and they're just like, yeah, sorry, Mr. McGill. And then he's up there like, yeah, listen, I didn't want to have to do this to him, but you saw what he's been like, But all the meanwhile, them not knowing about the battle that these two have been having for the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see something like that happening. So that'll be interesting to see. But I did kind of want to move on. But I did want to touch a bit on what Arthur said in the chat. Asked the question: do you think Nacho may be working for Gus somehow? Now that's an interesting thing because I was also thinking about that. That maybe if it was Gus who set up the note, and that maybe Nacho stepped in front of Hector as sort of Gus, because we know that Nacho has his own little thing on the side, so it's possible that he might have had a run-in with Gus and his own little ventures, and somehow they hooked up. What do you think of that possibility?
Yeah, I think it is a possibility. I mean, and it would explain if there happens to be some way that he communicated to Nacho, like, hey, look, make sure to be in front of Hector at all times because I tracked this guy. He's got a gun. He's probably going to try to shoot him. Yeah, it would explain at least that part of it. But the only mark against it is that the cartel was the cartel's kind of thing, and they really didn't connect too well with Gus. Gus was their meth guy, but Gus was the guy who they kind of always had by the balls, who, they kept him on a short leash because they kind of knew to a certain extent, hey, if we give this guy too much room, he might try to, to get revenge on us. So, I mean, it seems that Nacho is not, he's not solely invested in the cartel, but I don't know if he would play around in that particular sandbox only because I'm pretty sure he's at least, mildly aware of the history that Gus has with the cartel. Like how much history he knows, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure he's probably at least heard some story, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and of course, it's all just speculation at this point. We're not even sure Goss is involved, but I don't know. I think it's a really strong possibility. We'll just have to see. Cool. All right. So before we run out of time, let's just move on to our final topic, which is House of Cards season 4. Yeah. So let's switch gears, talk about Frank Underwood and all that. So first. I think that I got a lot of dislikes on my House of Cards review, so I think I didn't like the season as much as a lot of people did. That being said, I still liked the season. I thought it was really good. I definitely thought it was much better than season 3. I know this is something you and I disagreed on in the past as well, is that I really didn't like season 3. So for me, I thought if season 4 was going to be bad, I was ready to quit the show entirely. But season 4 won me back. That being said, I wasn't completely happy with it, but what were some of your overall thoughts on House of Cards season 4?
So House of Cards to me has changed dramatically from season 1 to season 4, right? To me, the tone has gotten a lot lighter than it was seasons 1 and 2 especially were really that kind of, knockdown, drag out, political wrangling and backstabbing and, like Frank clawing his way to the top, right?
Yeah.
So season 3 where, it's not as heavy. It's Frank fighting for his political life to a certain extent, but it's not really that weighty, right? And in retrospect, yeah, season 3 was the weak season out of this group that we had. But season 4, to a certain extent, shifts tone even a little more because now we see Frank and he's in campaign mode. He's trying to get Claire back. And he's trying to kind of, I guess, cement in his own mind that what he has done is the right things, right? But he's finding out that no, not really. Like there's a lot of people out there who resent you for the things that you have done, and the people who are willing to backstab you just as hard, if not harder. And so, like, when we saw with the Democratic convention, that was and we nominate her for president. It was I'm sorry, we're talking about the vice presidential nomination right now? Yeah. We understand talking about that. President, goddammit. We want to so. And yeah, just the amount of underhanded moves. Like season 1, Frank, that would have never happened to him because he would have had so many aces in the hole that she would have never tried to pull anything like that. Now, mind you, he got back on game and was like, "Hey, listen, goddammit, you don't pull no shit like that on me ever again. You do something like that ever again, I'm fucking your life up. You're done." He definitely Michael Corleone that particular situation, but he spent half the season trying to get his wife back, and the thing about it is I don't think that Frank knew how much he was actually hated. Frank seemed to be a very, very hated figure, and you've got the guy from the newspaper who's digging around, trying to find as much dirt on him as possible. You've got his political rivals trying to dig as much dirt on him as possible. And then you've got Claire, who, like after the end of season 3, was the big wild card because now when she comes back, she steps to him and is like, yeah, look, I know you apologize for, saying that, like I'm the reason why you're anything, this, that, and the third, but yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna have your balls in this vice real quick and tighten them because now I want some shit. I didn't really want things before, but now I really want some shit, and either you're gonna give it to me, or I'm going to fuck up your entire legacy now. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. And then like the thing that I'm still not getting is how do you have this president who's a damn cuckold? That was the thing that kind of got me, even from season 1. It was like Frank knew that Clay was sleeping around with other guys, and now he like kind of intentionally invites another guys, like, yeah, have my wife, please.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that was always the sort of purpose of their marriage, is that it was more of a political alliance. It's always hampering back to like medieval times. Makes you think of Game of Thrones or something, where it's the marriage is a political alliance rather than two people actually being in love. However, I think they did explore in season 3 and in this season about how they actually do the love side of the relationship and how that's sort of butting heads with the political alliance side of the relationship. But I wanted to ask about, because here's the thing about season 4 is a lot of people see it as almost in 2 halves. Like you have the first half, which was about, Claire bumping heads with Frank, and then Frank getting shot, which I thought was an amazing storyline, and then them coming to terms with that. And then the second half of the season is more of him dealing with the Republican nominee and trying to fight off people in his own party, like his own convention tried to take him over, and then dealing with the Republican nominee and the ICO, I guess is what they're calling instead of ISIS, the ICO terrorists and stuff. And so me personally, I actually very much preferred the first half of the season to the second half. Like the first half really had me. I was completely enthralled. But the second half, to me, it fell back into some of the things that I didn't like about season 3, like bringing that author guy back and having him have a relationship with Claire on the side. I thought that was kind of been there, done that. We've seen Claire have a lover on the side before, and I really don't like that author guy. He annoys me. And also, and they brought back Doug being all creepy and being like stalking this woman, which I think I quite had enough of that as well. So what are your thoughts on the first half of the season compared to the second half?
Yeah, like, you know what, I will agree. I mean, damn, you know what? I think Meacham was a loss, though, man. Like, Meacham was, like, that weird kind of quirky dude. And, I mean, even though they had that one kind of weird threesome or whatever, I overlooked that. But, like, I don't know, Meacham was my guy only because he was real loyal. And he was like, all right, look, I know I fucked up a while ago, but after Frank let him back into his good graces, he was 100% rock solid. But yeah, when they brought the author back, and it's like, oh well, I got to do things my way, and oh well, yeah, we want you to be the speechwriter now. Not only do we want you to write articles and shit, now we want you to be a personal speechwriter. He goes around and just being a dick to the other speechwriters who've been on. He's like, yeah, do you want her to say some stuff, or do you want her to say some stuff that's great, kind of thing. It was kind of like, all right, well, I mean, if that's the way you want to play it, I guess you got to do what you got to do. But the thing that really got me about the second half was, for one, the Republican nominee was way too, not even necessarily cookie cutter, but I'm like, if he's somebody that's supposed to rival Frank Underwood. Like, you need someone who gives off an air of power. And that guy just seemed like somebody who's getting mauled over. Period, point blank. You know, and like they tried to use the whole, yeah, I'm from New York and we've been through the terrorism. Like, first off, that guy is the most average, unimpressive New Yorker to ever break television. Ever. Okay? It would have been better if you put Donald Trump up there with his really, really, and very, very, and, you know, I'm going to do some really good things and good deals. Like, that would have been more impressive. That guy he wasn't even white bread. He was white flour. Okay? I'm sorry. That guy was the most just unimpressive specimen to ever walk the planet as a fictional New Yorker. I'm sorry.
Well, I did kind of buy him as some of the sort of white bread politicians that the Republicans would go for, but I bought him as he's sort of a conner. He was like the anti-Frank. He was like just as devious and just as deceptive as Frank. And it was funny, we got to see that when they went to meet about the ICO situation. They just went in there and like talked about video games and and how to because it just showed that they're basically the same person. They were just running on different parties, but they both don't really care about policies. They're both just backstabbing, canical, and that what makes him different from his previous adversary, Dunbar, who he defeated quite easily because she actually had morals. And House of Cards is kind of like Game of Thrones, where if you have morals, you're done.
I mean, well, you know what? Heather Dunbar's problem wasn't even necessarily that she had morals. It was the fact that it's like, all right, you can't be around a bunch of people that you know are immoral and tell them all the moral shit. As if you talking to them about, oh, and we need to do this because this is the right thing. No, you know that these are a bunch of sneaky, conniving bastards, right? It's not even, like, there's no faking about it. Like, they tell you, like, yeah, look, I'm not really, no, that doesn't give me anything I want. Why would I do it? Oh, because it's the right thing. It's like, oh, you're stupid if you think the right thing is the right thing.
Yeah,
that's Heather Dunbar's problem. You know, she wasn't Ned Stark because people actually did lie to Ned Stark. No one lied to Heather. She was stupid enough to think that if I tell them this, you know, this good news long enough, eventually they will come around to my side. And they were telling her, like, no, that's kind of not how it works. You know, that's not really the way that you want to play this. So that was her big issue. But this guy, I don't know, like he came off as so damn inauthentic. And he was like, oh, this is my family. Look at my smiling British wife. And looking at her jumping in the bed, and I'm the monster. He's the monster. She's the monster. It's like, oh.
Well, I think that describes politicians perfectly. He's inauthentic. But I just want to mention getting back to Doug, I just want to mention what Timo says in the chat. It says, I'm so disappointed in Doug. He was a favorite of mine back in season 1 and 2. Now shaking my head, I don't know what to say about him and his creepy vibes towards women. And see, that's the other thing. Like, that's why I feel the same way. And that's why I like Doug in the first half of the season. Because in the first half of the season, he seemed to go back to like season 1, season 2 Doug, where he's just Frank's shady right-hand man who does like shady things, but he's basically just working under Frank. But then in the second half of the season, we got back into the stalker mode, and that's when it just loses me. And I don't think they should really do that anymore and just explore him being Frank's aide.
Yeah, like him with the whole, you have to find something on her. Find something on her. What do you mean you have to find? There's something, damn it. You will find something. And dude was like, dude, I can't find a thing that does not exist. No, something's no. Damn it! I tap her phones, go through her emails, underwear drawer, second grade teachers. Like, come on, man! Like, dude, some people, unfortunately for him, just don't have the skeletons in their closet that you want. Like, just because you are, like, just because you are freaking 2 steps away from being a mafia boss doesn't mean that everyone in Washington is the same way.
Yeah, I kind of thought his storyline where he was going after Leanne, it's like, find dirt on her. That was kind of boring. I could have done without that.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I'm like, what? Okay, the guy, like, you're talking about months and months, and he's like, look, dude, I've done everything you've asked me to do, and there is nothing there. I can't find the things that you want me to find because they don't exist. And he's just like, I said, find them.
All right, I'm going to go a bit off topic here because in the chat they're talking about other shows about Fear the Walking Dead and the 100. Now, do you watch the 100? Because I that's on my to-do list because everyone keeps recommending that to me. Have you actually seen that one yet, Don?
I have not. I know it's a CW show. I haven't watched it as of yet. But I guess since so many people talking about it now, because we love yours, the subscribers, the peoples, we gets on the 100, huh?
And I just want to make my sort of feelings on Fear the Walking Dead is I actually really like that show. I think it gets far too much hate. I think last night's episode was a boring filler episode, but to me, it was the only one they had so far, so I'm still going to cut them some slack. And I personally, because I gravitate towards character shows, and me personally, I'm liking the characters in this show a lot better than the characters in The Walking Dead, but that's just me personally. I think it's hard to get used to after 6 seasons of The Walking Dead because these guys are pretty ignorant of the zombie apocalypse, so it's hard since we as an audience know a lot more than they do to be like, and they come off as morons about that. I don't know if you wanted to talk real quick about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing about it is, when it comes to the characters, I have no problem with the actual characters themselves, other than the fact that they seem to do things that smart people should not do too often. Like season 1, right? Travis and Madison especially just seem to be the 2 people that would go into places that I'm like, look, you lived in Los Angeles, okay? Like, it's not like they were, brand new transplants to Los Angeles. They'd never heard of the city before, other than what was, in Hollywood. I'm like, no, these people apparently like kind of grew up in Los Angeles. If my son or stepson tells me, hey, I was in a drug den, I saw someone eating another person, I'm not going there by myself at night with no weapons. I'm not going to do that. You want to know why? Because Los Angeles at one point was a very dangerous place, and going into a drug den is a very dangerous proposition, no matter what time period you're talking about. So that to me was just idiotic. And then you get to season 2, and it's like, okay, Travis is kind of smartened up a little bit, but only because Strand is like, look, dude, my boat, unless you, would rather swim to wherever you possibly can, hopefully don't get eaten by sharks or kill a whale or something like that, then we don't go picking up other people. So we move from Travis being the idiot to, the Chris is still, you scared me, man. You can say, like, no, dude, we already know. You get bit, you turn. Like, you get bit, you die, you turn. Like, this has been established already over the weeks and possibly, yeah, like over the few weeks that you guys were in that camp, it was already established. You get bit, you die, you turn. There is no, oh, okay, yeah, we can stop this thing. No, it's not happening. So Chris, is just as much of a dickhead as he was before. And him jumping into the water, I'm like, you know what? I wish he would have gotten sucked in by some underdraft and chopped up by the damn propellers from the boat, because I really can't stand that kid.
Well, I'll agree that Chris is the one character I can't really do without. I mean, I could do without, but otherwise, I quite like that show. Now, sorry for the sort of distraction. We should probably get back to House of Cards. I just wanted to briefly mention it since they were talking about it in the chat. But yes, Rang Dingo Dia, I will check out the 100. It's on my to-do list once I get around to it eventually. But yeah, but just real quick before we get back to House of Cards, is you have to admit that Strand is an awesome character.
Strand. Yeah, jokes like this all the time. Your wife, is she still attractive? Is she still as attractive as she was in these pictures? All right, that'll work. Like, yeah, season 2, shady black eyes, still shady.
All right, cool. So yeah, let's get back to House of Cards, and I think we're just about wrapping up here. So I just wanted to ask you. I wanted to sort of put your feet to the fire and sort of make you make a decision. So if you had to give season 4 a rating out of 10, what would you give it?
Wow. You know what? I am going to, out of 10, what would I give House of Cards? You know what? I'm gonna say a 7. I mean, it wasn't a subpar season, but it didn't blow me away. And the thing that kind of got me is, like, if I'm not mistaken, is Claire now breaking the fourth wall?
Oh, yeah, I think that's what they were trying to imply with that final scene. Frankly, like, I didn't even notice, and when someone pointed it out to me, like, I watched this review in the sky, I was like, oh my god, I was so blown away. Claire looked at the camera, and I'm like, yeah, who cares? I don't really care. Now, I don't know if they're going to make that be an ongoing thing or not, but I wasn't really that impressed with it.
Yeah, I mean, or what do you score?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What do you score this season?
Oh yeah, I did. I gave it the same thing, a 7, 7 out of 10, because I totally agree. Like it wasn't subpar. It was definitely. It got me back into House of Cards because, as I said, I was thinking of quitting the show, but I'm gonna stick with it. And I was really impressed with the first half of the season. I was totally blown away by the fact Frank getting shot. Like that storyline. Like when he got shot, I was just like completely. I was just, oh my god! And I love how they brought Lucas back and for the storyline to be the one to shoot him, and how they transitioned that into Hammerschmidt, because every time a reporter has gone after Frank, they've always like failed miserably, and so it's such a breath of fresh air to see Hammerschmidt actually make progress and actually start to get on to Frank. And he has Frank cornered so much that Frank has to start a war in order to distract from the article that he's writing. So I'd said that I would love to see the show end next season. I'm not sure if they will, but for me, I would love it if they ended the show next season and that it ended with Hammerschmidt like bringing Frank down. That's what I really want to see. I'm not sure if I will see that, but I'd love to see that.
I mean, look, the show is called House of Cards. And the one thing that we all, know about a House of Cards is it's very fragile, very easy to fall, and, with just the right wind, it will fall. So, yeah, I could see a situation with Frank and Claire winning the election, only for Frank to be put in jail. And who knows, maybe Claire becomes the first female president and kind of continues the cycle that Frank started.
To me, that I would love that ending. That ending would be awesome to me. if he beats Conway and everything's looking great, but then Hammersmith comes back and totally takes him down, and he gets arrested, and Claire becomes president. I think I'd love that ending, but we'll have to see. I just hope that it doesn't drag on and on and on like 24 or Dexter. I think this is a story that has a limited shelf life, and I think it would be better if it was like Breaking Bad or Lost, where they decided to end it at a good stopping point rather than trying to milk it for more money.
Yeah, I mean, I think something like this has a finite run anyway, just based off of the fact that you're talking about a man who's running for president. And since the presidency in the United States has a finite run, this kind of story where a guy is trying to get all the way to the top has to have a finite run. And again, I think the title says it all. A House of Cards is destined to take a tumble. I mean, unless you have super glued and laminated that House of Cards, put it in a earthquake-proof case, it's gonna come down.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, cool. So I think that's a good stopping point. I think we'll end this video here. Sorry for those who joined a bit late. You can go back and watch our discussion of Daredevil and Better Call Saul that we already did, which is pretty good. So I want to thank you. Thanks a lot, Don, for joining. It was great. Always good to talk TV shows. If you want to give a quick plug to your channel.
Yeah, listen, guys, if you have not checked me out by now, I mean, come on, you've seen me on these discussions. What the hell have you been doing? Anyway, look, I do Game of Thrones, Fear the Walking Dead, which, I actually need to do my review for episode 2 for that one. Better Call Saul, and, a bunch of other kind of stuff. I'm planning on doing a series of throwback reviews, which I'm going to call Latest Fuck Reviews. So, yeah, you'll see a bunch of stuff pop up. It's like, why is he reviewing Star Wars Episode 1 now? This is my latest fuck review for it. So, there you go, all right? And thank you again to Mark for having me on. It is always a pleasure to be here.
Cool, great. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for watching, and we'll definitely have to do this again for the next big event. I'm sure we can get Josh and Anna back for Fear the Walking Dead once that's wrapped up. All right. Oh, and did you want to plug your talk with Josh tomorrow with Supergirl?
Oh yeah, that's right. Tomorrow I'm going to be with the Geeksiders, and we are going to be talking about season 1 of Supergirl. And I do believe that will be on their channel tomorrow at, I believe it's either 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Most likely 7, because 8 o'clock is Arrow. And I don't know if they watch it, but I do. So, yeah, make sure to check out their channel. I will send out a tweet for it. And, yeah, so you guys make sure to subscribe and look for me on Twitter at Don Willi. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm kind of out of it right now.
That's all good. All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for watching, and we will catch you next time.